We had a 19.5-point spread. I think it's moving towards 21 at this point because people are starting to realize you can bet on college football. Last year, it was a 3-point game between these two teams. What side of the fence are you on this one?
I have to think Notre Dame is probably a public side, right? They're Notre Dame. But two things. One, start of the season, it's easy to come slow out of the blocks. These international games, all the distractions, all that stuff, it can get kind of weird. New coach over at Navy, now Brian Newberry. They're still going to be running this triple option. That feels like a lot of points for a guy that's you still got a new quarterback in Sam Hartman trying to get used to things. You can limit possessions as a spread offense. SP Plus loves Notre Dame here, but give me Navy and the points here. I just think it'll be a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, and a little bit weird. All these international games, you see them in the NFL all the time too. Just weird stuff happens. I don't think Navy can win this game, but I think they can keep it a little bit closer.
Yeah, I am completely on the opposite side of the fence of you here. Last year,
I'm guessing it's because of talent, Ari.
No. I just listen, if there's any talent combuster, it's the triple option for a team that doesn't get it. Sometimes you can tell, I think, in the first 10 minutes of a triple option game, whether a team is going to be able to stop it or if it's going to be a 4-quarter struggle to figure out where the ball is. And of course, we've seen Navy over the course of many years here, play Notre Dame pretty tough. I think that last year's game was a little bit closer than people thought it would be. And I think the score wasn't necessarily the final thought that you would get from a Notre Dame game, but they couldn't throw the ball last year, dude. If you have any thought that Sam Hartman's going to be a top 7 to 10 quarterback in college football this year, and they have some receivers to actually throw the ball to this year, how could you possibly think that, they're not going to just run all over this team? If they throw it early, opens up the run game. Navy's pass defense has been traditionally pretty bad. I think that this is a pretty good opportunity for them to start the new era in another country with their new quarterback and kind of make a statement. I just don't see this game being very close. And last year it was Northwestern and Nebraska, which was the grab ass bowl that we always all wanted.
That's a very entertaining football game.
I think that was kind of one of the top 5 most. I mean, if it was a parody of a football game, that was a parody. Is that where the onside kick happened?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and Scott Frost being involved in all that was quite the journey. But I just think that Notre Dame is a better football team all around, and if they actually have a quarterback and some skill position players that can make some plays this year, they should have no problem throwing the ball, which will then open up the run, which is the exact opposite of what they were doing last year. So this is the big season for Marcus Freeman too. It's what is your viewpoint of Notre Dame in general going into the year?
Well, all I hear, Ari, is that you hate the troops. Basically, they're abroad. They're coming over there to fight, and you're doubting them left and right.
So if the troops are playing in Europe,
yes,
is that an invasion?
I feel like if they're next to the Irish, probably not. I think it's more of a business trip. What's the word I'm looking for? Going internationally to improve relations, maybe something along those lines. So I don't think so. But
that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that the team was playing out there.
Yeah, I think Marcus Freeman inherited a tough situation because you have Brian Kelly, who felt like he was banging up against the ceiling of Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. And so when you take over and you win 9 games, people are sort of complaining because, we just won 10 games, or more 5 years in a row. And it turns out Brian Kelly, pretty good football coach, and Marcus Freeman taking his first head coaching job at Notre Dame. I think sometimes people overlook that of he's an incumbent. He should keep it going, keep it rolling. He kept a bunch of their assistants. He should be fine. But Notre Dame does not have the advantages that they once had. And Brian Kelly, a little bit more experienced than Marcus Freeman. So, I think you got to get to double digits this year, or else I think next year you might be coaching for your job. Certainly he's got the energy and the belief of the locker room, but he needs Sam Hartman to be great. You got to get to double digits this year.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 things. And I think Eric Decker did a good job here in the comments of kind of mapping out why last year's Navy game was close. I think they blitzed a ton of cornerbacks in that game, and Drew Pine just was confused and they couldn't throw the football. And then Navy went on a late run there in the second half But the idea that Brian Kelly left Notre Dame in order to go to LSU because the last remaining bullet point on his resume was to go win a national championship is very interesting to me, Dave. He goes down there because he thinks that this is his only chance to equip a roster that is good enough to beat an Alabama or a Georgia or Ohio State or something. My question to you is, do you think that Brian Kelly, who you clearly have bought in on this year with LSU, is right about that? Do you think 10-2 or 11-1 and a blowout loss in the first round of the playoff or the 14 field at least is Notre Dame's ceiling? Or do you think that Marcus Freeman actually could one up?
I think it's an interesting question. I think ultimately Notre Dame fans are going to be mad at me, but I feel like if you look at Notre Dame and you look at Nebraska, they're like kind of distant cousins in that so much of that the sport has changed around them that it has changed their circumstances, and it takes a while to get used to that. Notre Dame obviously has enjoyed a lot of success. You had Brian Kelly, but how does Notre Dame recruit and have the kind of roster that can win a national championship, especially in the playoff era where you can't just go 12-0, beat a few Big 10 teams and get into the national championship and it's one game. You got to beat at least two elite teams with top 5 rosters now to get to win a national championship. So
usually it's 2 in the 14 field. It might be 3 or 4 depending on your route.
Well, not elite team. Yeah, I guess depending on your route. I guess.
What I mean by that is in the 12-team playoff, if you are a team like Notre Dame's current iteration of itself, you are going to have to potentially play a 3-loss Alabama team that has a top 5 roster in the first or second round of this thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, those teams are going to be the dangerous teams. Like if your Alabama team, like the way that you view Alabama this year actually comes true, they don't have an offensive skill position player that they can, equate or count on to win a football game, but they're nasty on defense. They're super talented and they go 9-3 in the SEC. Like that, in my opinion, would be Notre Dame's worst nightmare. The current Notre Dame worst nightmare in the first or second round of the 12-team field. Like that is the thing that nobody is considering when we're talking about it's not just the super teams that are undefeated at the end of the year. It's also the Ohio States and the Clemsons and the Alabamas who had off years that have still got a chance to play the teams that had the best years ever. And I think people are going to get really, really upset when your 11-0 Pitt Panthers or your 10-2 Penn State Nittany Lions or any of those teams that are in that position start losing to teams that would have otherwise been out of it in the 14 field. I think that you have to have a roster that is equipped to beat 3 teams in the same postseason with top 7 talent level.
Well, you look at right now, I'm looking at the blue chip ratio. Notre Dame's at 65%. You have 3 teams, the teams I'm sure you are expecting, are over 75%. I think Notre Dame has been good. They're always good. But I think you have to have more bodies in the middle and a transcendent quarterback. That's been a while since we've seen that with Notre Dame. I think if there's a cheat code to Notre Dame outplaying its talent level and beating some of those teams that are more talented and quite frankly, probably quite a bit more talented, it is that generational quarterback. It is that big time talent, the Deshaun Watson, the Trevor Lawrence, the Bryce Young. They need that guy. I mean, they just haven't had that guy. Sam Hartman's really good. I don't think Sam Hartman's that guy, but I don't think we're talking about Notre Dame for the national championship this year. But they're in a weird spot where, Brian Kelly, all right, would you say one of the 5 best coaches in college football?
I would think so. I think that he's at least.
You had him there, and they, we can talk about the national championship appearance, but was there a point where you thought at any point Notre Dame's got the best team in the country?
Here is the wild card of this discussion, because somebody just said, Timothy said the only hope is a Clemson model. Mm-hmm. But Brian Kelly is a good coach who has gotten a lot out of the rosters that he's had. We both can agree on that. Mm-hmm. He has never had the reputation as a maniacal recruiter. He's never seemed like somebody who has gone all in and become crazy about calling kids and doing everything that he possibly could to get the best possible recruiting classes. And maybe part of that was the limitations that you have at that university from an admission standpoint. But if Marcus Freeman can acquire talent from the high school level at a more efficient pace, then you have a chance to just assemble a team that just is better than what Notre Dame has had. It doesn't mean that he's a better coach, but sometimes I feel like I might want the better recruiter at a place that has talent limitations and then hope for the best after that. And that could be a disaster, because if you have a great recruiter who gets better players but isn't nearly as good of a coach, you might not be able to match the consistent output that Brian Kelly had. But I do think that Notre Dame has the potential, if they break through from a recruiting standpoint and get through to some of these five-star prospects that they've at least gotten commitments from in the last 2 years, that maybe at the end of the road here in 4 or 5 years, if he's still the coach there, you have a team that is built in a different way than the Notre Dame teams that made the playoff under Brian Kelly were built. That's, I think, on the table at least.
In 2023, though, Ari, how do you win a recruiting battle against Ohio State? What are you selling?
I don't know, but how did you do it in 2017? It's probably the same. It's the same sales pitch, and like the idea of, the whole Jay-Z thing that Freeman always brings up of, you got to try to find the 5-star prospects that aren't driven by those other factors, and, go to Catholic schools and, say this is the environment that we're, it's not easy.
Good luck. Okay.
No, I'm saying, but good luck. But that's what happened already. They've already been dealing with that. This isn't an NIL discussion. This is a Notre Dame discussion. This isn't like a new problem because you can pay players.
I still think if you're talking about recruiting at an elite level and you're not having an NIL discussion, you're fooling yourself.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't have it or can't have it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying they might be able to win 3 or 4 more battles a year than they were in the past. And over a 4-year period, they could assemble a team that has more top-end talent, especially, too, because Notre Dame's done a great job of having great offensive and defensive lines for the most part. Like, I'm just talking about, like, skill position players that get burned, in the Alabamas. I'm trying to extend hope here.
That's a lot of ifs of a lot of varying sizes to get there.
It's just like I can't sit here on the podcast and tell Notre Dame fans that their team is hopeless when it comes to winning a national title.
If you could take the over/under on Notre Dame national championships in the next 25 years at 0.5, what would you take?
Over.
Okay. Give me the answer.
25 years is a really long time. And my old co-host on the show
used to say, what's going to change? What's going to change that shifts the sands underneath Notre Dame's feet in a way that is better?
You have no idea what could change. I can't even fathom it, man. That's the thing that's so funny. It's like, if it were up to me, like, based on what I see in the sport now, all the teams that keep hoarding all the 5-star prospects are going to be the 5 best teams in college football every year forever. But everybody keeps telling me that the expanded playoff is supposed to change recruiting, right? Or give people more of a shot, or create more parity. That's what I keep hearing.
It can help a little bit, but not.
But in 25 years, the sport might be very different in a way that we don't know. What if they join the Big Ten, relax admission standards? And, I don't know. Anything can happen.